Dave, Dak Prescott. All right, Jamie, what's your bust case for Dak Prescott?
CeeDee Lamb gets hurt. Man, they're really
a hard one, right? This is a hard one to come up.
They discover a run game, and Jerry Jones decides we're not playing Dak, so we're going to run the ball with Rico Dowdle every play, and Dak struggles to repeat his numbers from a year ago.
All right, here's my bust case. I was scrambling to come up with something, but actually this I think is not bad. He averaged 30.3 fantasy points per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues against the NFC East. The Eagles could easily get better. They spent their first 2 picks on corners. They brought in Vic Fangio. The Commanders brought in Dan Quinn. The Giants have a new defensive coordinator as well, and they got Brian Burns. Maybe he doesn't just beat up on the NFC East. That would be my bust case, and then he'd still be good, but he'd be a little disappointing. Dak Prescott, Dave.
3 of the Cowboys' first 4 games this year are against NFC South defenses, not named Carolina. So I think he can get off to a pretty good start. And I almost wonder if it's the Cowboys defense that ends up being one that takes a step backward in the NFC East, which might force Dak to chase points in the second half of some divisional games. And that would keep me optimistic that he can still put up some good numbers. Might not be the way that we like it, and there might be more turnovers, but I still think that he'll be good. He's been very good, over 20 fantasy points per game each of the last 3 years. There have been pockets in those years where he's just been let off the chain. That was the case last season after the bye. Cowboys just said, you know what? Let's go all in on Dak and CeeDee Lamb and see what happens. And it helped them get into the playoffs. He averaged 29 fantasy points per game in 11 games after the bye. And I think that they can continue to do that. I think he's got that nice, safe floor of, let's call it 21 fantasy points. It's not great, but you're also not drafting Dak with a top 6 QB. He's not going to be a top 6 QB. You're not going to get him with one of your first 6 picks. He's going to end up being a very good value who can help put points on your scoreboard every single week.
One thing just to mention, the offensive line could be bad.
Oh, I don't know. It's going to change.
I don't think that's going to be the case, but they are replacing
Tyron Smith.
Big pieces.
Well, Tyron Smith, they've had to replace for spurts in the past. And I think it was like 3 years ago. Whenever Smith was out, Dak was terrible. I think that's changed since. I think that they've added enough pieces to that offensive line where it's definitely younger and could definitely be better. Here's a point I forgot to make. Jamie, you mentioned the run game. Dallas finds a run game. What if they don't? And it's the Dak show. And you talked about who were we just talking about? How you just overload the player. He's in a contract year. You're just going to give him a ton of work.
Oh, I said this about Najee yesterday.
Okay, so Najee could be one of those guys. Maybe Ayuk is one of those guys. Dak's in the contract year too. Do the Cowboys let him walk after the season? They don't want to pay him $60 million.
No, they're not letting him walk.
I think
maybe they could, but maybe they just let him roll.
Well, I think he's a pretty good call as bust proof. He doesn't run that much anymore, but you said 21, 22 points per game. In 4 of the last 5 seasons, Dak Prescott has averaged 24.2 or more fantasy points per game, which is just terrific.
Yeah, and I'm taking 10% off that.
Yeah, he only has had 1 bad season in the last 5 years, and it was this weird season 2022 where he just threw a lot of interceptions. I wish he had another weapon, but I think it's, obviously it's a great call as bust proof.